Hey there, I'm Al Wooden, aka the Skeptical Canuck, and you should get ready for a little food for thought. But first, get started, don't be the town bike. Smack like, all right? And subscribe if you haven't already. We're kicking it into overdrive and blasting out news segments, conspiracy podcasts, and even video smoke sessions with my new co host, Steve, the professional. And without further ado, let's get right into it, folks. So, Canadian officials flagged 900 food items from China with problems over the last 2 years. This article is from July 14th, 2019, CBC.com. Items included gumballs with extraneous metal chow mein that contained an insect. All right. So, Canadian inspectors intercepted nearly 900 food products from China over concerns about faulty labels, unmentioned allergens, and harmful contaminants that included glass and metal between 2017 and early 2019, according to internal federal records. The document provides an inside look at imports from China that caught the attention of officials for appearing to fall short of Canadian standards, from gumballs with extraneous metal to 3-minute chow mein that contained an insect to a spicy octopus flagged for a non-specific hazard. The list, compiled by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, was obtained through an access to information law. Well, they didn't release it out of the kindness of their hearts. Its release comes at a time of significant public interest in Canada about cross-border food inspections, especially those involving China. The scrutiny of agricultural goods has been central to a diplomatic dispute between Canada and its second biggest trading partner, as I always say. As I always like to point out, bilateral frictions have intensified since the December arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou in Vancouver as China's subsequent detention of 2 Canadians on espionage allegations. The governing Liberals have come under pressure from rival Conservatives to respond by taking a harder line when it comes to Chinese imports. In recent weeks, China asked Canada to suspend all its meat export certificates to the Asian country after Chinese customs inspectors detected residue from a restricted feed additive called ractomafine, whatever, in a batch of Canadian pork products. A statement that doesn't sound as dangerous as metal and glass or bugs. A statement by China's embassy in Ottawa said the investigation covered at least 188 forged veterinary health certificates and argued Canadian systems obviously had safety loopholes. They're saying that to us. Jesus. All right. Chinese authorities have also blocked imports of Canadian canola seeds, which is a huge reason that we even do business with this country. All right. The slave driving nation, alleging they found pests in some of the shipments. The federal government says it has tried unsuccessfully to send a delegation of inspectors to China to examine the evidence. Unsuccessful. The economic consequences of China's trade actions on Canadian food shipments, as well as the detentions of Michael Krovig and Michael Spavor, are widely seen as attempts by Beijing to pressure liberal governments into releasing Meng. The list from Canadian Food Inspection Agency shows it's not uncommon for inspectors to raise concerns about imports from China. Between January 1st, 2017 and February 29th, 2019, remember that date, all right? Remember that date. I'm going to point that out in a few minutes. Agency officials detected problems with 889 food or food ingredient imports into Canada from China, according to the document. Only 4 food shipments, however, from China were refused entry into Canada over that period, CFIA's quarterly reports show. That goes a long way to make me feel better. An agency spokesman said that CFIA investigates concerns to determine if it's a hazard or fails to comply with Canadian standards. When necessary, she said, officials take action, including minor labeling corrections, recalls, product seizures, entry refusals, and the cancellation of licenses. Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau said in an email statement that the issues from the CFIA do not necessarily correlate to a particular problem with the imported food products from foreign countries. There is a list of cases reported to the CFIA that informs operational and follow-up activities to verify compliance and take any appropriate actions in accordance with the laws and regulations, Bibu said. The Canadian food safety system is a strong and recognized as one of the best in the world, and the government is confident in all products approved by the CFIA as safe for local consumption as well as export. The list only provides numbers for China and does not include comparable numbers for Canada's other trading partners. Tariffs unlikely. Conservative Andrew Scheer, leader, recently called on Prime Minister Trudeau to step up inspections on all products from China and consider slapping tariffs on imports. Bibu's office has said Canada has no intention of increasing Bibu's office said Canada has no intention of increasing inspections on Chinese imports. Very, very nice. I'm not going to try this name. It says Slavandius Quavu Akavorbor. Anyways, an expert in agri-food trade policy wrote in an email that Canada would likely take a long time before implementing actions against Chinese imports. From the letter, it says, Canada will always play to the rules and exhaust all democratic channels available through international trade agreements, such as the World Trade Organization, wrote the professor, an assistant professor at the University of Guelph. Any retaliatory action may result in a trade war that may negatively affect the two countries. Oh my goodness. Almost finished here. Glenford Jameson, a Toronto-based lawyer with the expertise in the food sector, said that the CFIA list provides an extra level of detail that's usually omitted from public documents. He added that none of the concerns flagged in the document are highly unusual. This list is a list that wouldn't be surprising from any country, including the United States, and really is just a byproduct of having stringent food inspections and regulatory safety systems. Jameson said, no food commodity is traded at 100% perfect compliance at all the time. All right, so they're saying that there's similar problems. And my first question when I read this is, how does glass get anywhere near my food? Anywhere near it. The next article goes into it a little bit, though it gives a pretty bogus reason. So yeah, first I want to address something really quickly. Now, all this is about from China, right? Products from China between the years of 2017 and 2019, which is pretty much up to the current date. Now, we all know that there's a bit of Chinese influence, Communist Party influence in our government. Now, I want to point out real quick before I get into it, the person that I'd like to mention, Mary Nig, is the MP born December 16th, doesn't really matter, is a Canadian politician serving as the Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion, and International Trade since 2018. But if you look down here, it says since a by-election in 2017. So really, 2017 to 2019, she was the Minister of Small Business, Export, Promotion, and International Trade. So I'd like to see what she has to say. Because if you look at her birthplace, it is British Hong Kong. Now, I've bring this up before on other shows. True, Hong Kong is a different part of China. It's a special administration area. But recently, we've seen the crackdown on Hong Kong and the treaty expired. So technically now, I believe Hong Kong is part of China, which means, let's say that this person has family in China and their decisions could be some way in that way manipulated by the fact that they have family there that could have their lives made very hard, that could be arrested, that could be charged with false things. The communist government in China has been known to twist people's arms like that. They're pretty much not above anything. They've been accused of organ harvesting and genociding an entire population from the year 2000 to currently, called the Falun Gongs, and they were taking their organs. So, but just anybody, if they execute you, they'll take your organs. Hey, recycle, right? You got to recycle. So the fact that she's from British Hong Kong, I'd say, kind of concerns me, and it should concern anybody that's paying attention if you know anything about the relationship between China and Hong Kong being oppressed by them. So, you know, you could say, oh, she's not Chinese influenced, but I think that's pretty damn debatable. So, who else is very close in our government? to China. Theresa Tam is a Canadian physician and public servant who currently serves as the third chief public health officer of Canada to the Public Health Agency, blah, blah, blah. Initially acting the role, whatever. It doesn't really matter about that stuff. She was born in British Hong Kong and says she grew up in the United Kingdom. So I'm telling you guys, when someone is born in Hong Kong, they have links to China. Could she have a huge family there that could be threatened if she doesn't do exactly what she's told? Yes. Could she actually be an undercover communist that loves the CCP and wants to see it spread out and take over Canada? Yes. Now, am I saying that outright? No. But, because I don't want to get charged with slander here, but I am saying it's a pretty good likely scenario. Now, just before we go on with reading the other article about glass and metal being found in foods, before I wrap up with my statement at the end there, what does it say here? Tam has, let's see, COVID-19 pandemic. On January 7th, 2020, when it appeared, listen to this, folks, that there was a health crisis emerging in Wuhan, Tam advised Canadians there has been no evidence to date that this illness, whatever it's caused by, is spread easily from person to person. No healthcare workers caring for patients have become ill, a positive sign. Oh, that doesn't sound very Chinese sounding at all. It sounds like fucking Yoda giving a statement here. Excuse my language. At the end of January 2020, Tam said there's no reason to be overly concerned about COVID-19. On the 23rd of January, Tam was a member of the WHO committee that broadcast that it was too early to declare a public health emergency of international concern. And on the 26th of January, Tam stated that there is no clear evidence that this virus is spread easily from person to person. The risk to Canadians remains low. On the 27th of January, Canada confirmed its first case on the 29th. She told Canadians that it's going to be rare, but we are expecting cases. It's going to be rare, she said. Oh my goodness. In February, cases in Canada grew from 4 to 20. During this time, Tam authorized the release of Canadians who had been quarantined for 14 days after their repatriation from Wuhan and several cruise ships. So if you actually looked at the numbers, there was a story in the news, or it was all over the news, 156. I still remember the number of Canadians trapped in Wuhan. Now, some of those people might be there doing business, and a lot of them, I looked at them, I'm not trying to be offensive at all, but a lot of them were Asian. So I got to ask you, if you came to Canada for a better life, to get away from China, because they are brutal, they are very controlling, why are you going back there for visits and stuff? I know people have got family and stuff like that, but it seems to me like they could have, I don't know, snuck in some CCP agents. So again, either way, these people probably didn't have a say in the matter. If someone's got your family by the balls, what are you going to do? Refuse to get on a plane and go to Canada? Not that bad of a deal, right? You have to sit in a military base for 2 weeks, and then, hey, you'll be able to walk around. So I don't know why Theresa Tam made such a big deal about saying, oh, it's not going to spread. It's not going to spread. Now, look at this. On April 16th, Tam changed her recommendation to wearing a non-medical face mask and made a big deal about asymptomatic transmission. I'm not even going to read the whole thing. I'll make that into another segment, but it should show you what I'm trying to say is we really shouldn't be having people that were born outside of Canada involved in our federal politics. I'm not saying that they can't take part in perhaps like civic politics, working around the city, becoming mayors and stuff. I'm sure that they can serve their community just fine. But, you know, I want to get into this really quickly here on my notes. You know, it's time for us to take responsibility. And we got to demand that we stop taking food imports from the CCP-run communist nightmare of slave labor that is China, and start doing more business with our neighbors that are more democratic and trustworthy nations. So, you know, before I get into some more examples of how, how having people that are born outside of Canada, inside of our federal government, making these huge decisions is dangerous, I'm going to go ahead and read this other article about meat being found, about stuff being found in meat. So yeah, and it's between the years of 2017, 2019. Process, an important part to note here, most of the meat processing facilities in the United States are owned by Chinese government places. Can you believe that? All right, so let's get into this. Processed meat recalls rise dramatically as consumers bite down on metal, plastic, and glass. Bits of metal, hard plastic, rubber, and even glass are increasingly getting mixed and baked into processed meat products reaching customers, triggering. Oh, Jesus, I need some more. Triggering. I'm gonna have to edit this bit out. All right, sorry about that, folks. We're doing it live here. Triggering bits of metal, hard plastic, rubber, and even glass are increasingly getting mixed and baked into processed meat products reaching consumers, triggering a record number of safety recalls, a Washington Post analysis of federal records shows. So far this year, the Agriculture Department has announced 34 recalls involving 17 million pounds of meat products after stray materials were found inside them. That's a sharp increase from a decade ago in 2009, when there were 5 such recalls involving about 1 million pounds of processed meat. Metal parts are breaking off machines that mix, chop, and puree ingredients. Plant workers' rubber gloves are falling into meat mixtures, and bits of plastic and glass from meat packaging. Wait a minute. Bits of plastic and glass from meat packaging? Why is there glass being used to package meat? I just don't get that. That really rubs me the wrong way and sounds like a hot steaming serving of bull plop that the Washington Post wants us to swallow. But let's read on. Glass from meat packaging and ingredient containers are getting ground into the food. Yummy! The makers of some of the most beloved and recognizable ready-made food staples have been issued recalls that have included Tyson Foods chicken tenders, Jimmy Dean sausages, and everybody's favorite, Spam. The stray items, which the USDA calls foreign objects, are typically found after a consumer bites into a meat product. Records show sometimes chipping teeth in the process. The objects can cause choking and injure the intestinal tract. Oh, isn't that wholesome? There is an initial shock when you find something that clearly does not belong, such as a screw or shrapnel or packaging material. A screw! A screw, folks, said Robert Rausch, a New York food safety lawyer. It's shock, it's disgusting. It's shock, it's disgust. The concerned lawyer always the concerned the concern is always whether there were other pieces that you swallowed. It's like the old joke. What's worse than finding a worm in your apple? It's finding half a worm. Isn't that the truth? A number of changes are causing the recalls to rise, according to USDA and industry experts. Manufacturers are revving up the process line speeds to increase production, sometimes using old equipment that breaks down under the added strain. Consumers are taking their complaints public, naming the companies on social media, often including photos of the contaminated food. And USDA reporting requirements for the contamination in response to congressional mandate became more stringent in 2012. The same year that Smith Months was renewed, so they could just lie about it. Smith Months is making it legal for the USA to use propaganda on their own citizens. So just a fun fact that the Washington Post didn't mention. The USDA acknowledges that consumer complaints about the contamination are on the rise and issued guidelines in March to food manufacturers to get them to respond more quickly to reported problems, saying companies sometimes issue recalls only after multiple consumer complaints. Oh my goodness, only after multiple consumer complaints. Sounds kind of like what we just read about Canada there on the CBC. 2 months after the guidelines were issued, Tyson Foods announced that it was said to be the largest U.S. meat recall ever for foreign matter contamination. Metal shavings may have ended up in as much as 12 million pounds of chicken strips. Oh my goodness. I wonder if there's free dipping sauce in the box at least. Oh boy. The recall was expanded once, adding nearly 11.8 million pounds of chicken strips to the original recall of 69,093 pounds and involved 6 consumer complaints with 3 oral injuries, records show. Details in the USDA recall notices are sparse. Tyson Foods declined to respond to requests by the Washington Post for more specific information regarding victim injuries. It also declined to explain how the food became contaminated or how the problem was resolved. That's what I'd like to know. How did it get in there? In preparation, how does metal shavings get in chicken strips? In a prepared statement, company spokesman Worth Sparkman said instances of foreign material in our products are rare, but if they happen, we move quickly to notify those affected and take corrective action. All right. After multiple complaints, the Post examined more than 150 USDA recall notices for foreign object contamination from 2009 to this year. For each recall, the Post recorded manufacturer's name, type of food, pounds of the recalled product, type of foreign material, and the manner in which the contamination was discovered. The analysis showed that the spike in recalls, no pun intended, the spike in recalls began in 2016. Pieces of plastic accounted for nearly half of the recalls for foreign objects and metal for nearly 25%. The rest of the recalled food was contaminated with either rubber, glass, cardboard, or wood. Well, cardboard and wood's not that bad. You know, I would just want like maybe a free box of chicken strips, you know, for that. But glass, metal, processed meat products range from raw, marinated meat considered semi-processed to cooked products that are ready to serve after heating. Most frequently recalled were the sausages and breaded chicken products, deli meats, beef stews, meat-filled burritos, hamburger patties, and chicken pizzas were also recalled. Although many of the recalls involved millions of pounds of processed food, not all of it was necessarily contaminated. Uh, Companies stamp processing dates and locations on product packaging, so when the contaminated food is found, products produced at the same plant during the same time frame can be pulled for safety. And the USDA does not have the power to order a recall. Oh my goodness! It can only recommend one based on what it knows about the contamination of a product. Now, see that seems like a bit of a problem to me. Ugh, faster reports. All right, we'll probably only read a little bit more of this. The industry is chafing at some of the 2012 federal reporting requirements, and you know what? That's all good. We'll just cut it off there because it's just a lot of the same, really. But yeah, so I wanted to go back to what I was saying about foreign influence, specifically Chinese influence. All right, so that is about it for the reading of stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to finish up. You know, they said it was only 900 items, and in that article we just read, oh, not all of them had stuff in them. I want to make it clear that this is not an article about the stuff that hurt people. All of the stuff in total. This is just about the stuff that they flagged and they found between those years. Recently, about a month and a half ago, a very good friend of mine on Facebook, I've met them in person, they're not a fake person, was telling a story about, here, let me just go to my notes because I got the whole thing right here. Okay. Oh, I thought I did. Anyways, doesn't really matter. Oh, no, here it is. What made me look into this, you might ask? You know, did I see this in the news? Well, of course not. I didn't see this anywhere. I thought of this and Google searched for it. And well, what initially caused this spark in my brain was a Facebook post from a friend, like I was just saying. And she was talking about finding a piece of glass, a chunk of glass, with her tongue in a nice big drum of Kraft peanut butter. That's right. She had to call an ambulance and be rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, she was okay. But she took the spoon of that extra crunchy special blend of Kraft right out of her 2-year-old son's hands before he was about to be subjected to the same kind of punishment and whatever Kraft decided to stuff in those jars that day. I mean, the kid was about to eat a friggin' bite of this peanut butter that had glass in it. And his mom had to go to the hospital. And I'm not sure, but I think she got a stitch in her tongue. So yeah, pretty scary to think what might be in there. It's like that old adage, like the guy said, what's worse, finding a worm in your apple or finding a half a worm? And that's kind of the situation there. So, you know, I'm just going to read the rest of the stuff here. Mary Nig, like we discussed earlier, where's her comment? Teresa Tam, responsible for the lockdown, responsible for the lockdown recommendations being endorsed via the WHO, World Health Organization. She stressed that the virus had no indications of spreading human to human and brought over a plane of 156 people right from Wuhan, not from all of China, right from Wuhan, because we all know people, I think, were allowed to come from the rest of China. The cases before the country got closed down. So the cases climbed from 4 to 14, and the pandemic began. We can thank whoever let that stuff happen. Trudeau, Mary Nig, I don't know. Anyone born outside of Canada should be ineligible to participate in federal level politics. Municipal is fine. They can serve their communities as mayors and, you know, I don't know, board members or however the hell that works. I'm just learning these things. But China's influence has become a dangerous issue that's being ignored by most of the media and the country's population. I mean, you've seen our national, our minister there, whatever the hell her name was sticking up for China. Meanwhile, China banned our famously high quality, delicious Canadian pork products and beef products, as I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, and I might be mistaken about the beef products, but we're famous for having good quality food, and they're banning our products from going there. The soybeans, our farmers depend on that stuff, right? That's the way it's set up, that they have to depend to be hand to mouth to a Chinese government that's going to pull strings and play politics with our economy. So why are we even doing business with them? I don't get it. All right. Um, our current national defense minister was born outside of Canada, and he's our national defense minister during the largest mass shooting in Canada's history. Uh, during the bringing of 156 people from China mid-pandemic from Wuhan, when the danger of the virus was pretty evident, I'd say that's national security, an issue. Dealing with a deal forged by Chinese government-run corporations that involved pieces involved in a defense comm satellite, which were sensitive to hacking to be used in the production of it, that seriously compromised the security of Canadian armed forces, the national security secrets, and our allies, was advised against by CSIS, the RCMP, CIA, FBI, and other U.S. police and security agencies. And let's not forget that 450 billion, all you right-wing rednecks bitching about the immigrants. Oh, it's the immigrants, they're taking our jobs. The government gives them a house to live in and gives them all this money for free. Do you know how much $450 billion is? Pretty sure it's a year or two of the entire economy of Canada. Not positive on that, but I think it's about that. Maybe even 3 years of GDP. Okay. All right. $1 billion investment. So let's not forget the $450 billion investment in a Chinese government-owned investment fund. So there's no conflict of interest in our government standing to profit from Chinese imports en masse, like food products or other things that may or may not be dangerous to our health. Not at all. Come on, forget about that. And yeah, let's just think about Jagmeet Singh. Hell, he's a handsome fellow, I'll give you that. But where are his loyalties really at? Can we really trust someone whose home and native land is not on the line? I think it's time we enforced some of our sovereignty and banned non-Canadian born people from becoming prime minister and participating in federal politics. I mean, this is a nation of only 45 million people. That is bigger than the USA geographically. So we've got 45 million people. They've got about 365 million people the last time I checked. 365 million. We've got 45 million. So we need someone to represent the people who were born here. And that's no offense to immigrants. I love them all. I think we should increase immigration, if anything. Or, I mean, proper immigration with screening and whatnot. But yeah, let's get back to this here. We need to protect our interests and not the rest of the world's interests. Okay. And for too long, we've been looking out for the rest of the world. We've been giving away money. And, we have a smaller population than most nations this size, way smaller. And therefore, we're more vulnerable to foreign influence. One more thing. Oh, yeah, I think I already mentioned that. So, oh, here we go. No. So, there we go. All right, we're back. Like I was saying, but what about the items that weren't flagged? There was 900 that were flagged. And what about questionable nations of import like India or other less reputable countries with abhorrent human rights abuses. What about those ones? They even mentioned in the thing, these numbers are only specific for China. Okay, it's time for us to take responsibility back and demand we stop taking food imports from the CCP-run communist nightmare of slave labor that is China. They don't respect human rights. You think they're going to respect our human rights here in Canada by sending us shit over the border? No. And we got to start doing business with our neighbors and more democratic and trustworthy nations. Like, why not the US? I mean, why not Holland? Why not Finland? Why not all these other damn countries? Hell, why not India? They're a lot better than China. And I just slammed them a minute ago, but they're still way better than China. And most importantly, we need to demand an end to foreign members in our federal parliament and a parliamentary overhaul in general. Okay? Our parliament should be and was designed to be filled with community members and people with a stake in the communities they represent, meaning residents can only be the ones representing their ridings and neighborhoods. Representative government looks like this: school teachers, firemen, and even trustworthy police officers, business owners, and even knowledgeable working class heroes. But not career politicians who stand and make a buck selling us down the Yangtze River. That's a Chinese river. And certainly not people who can't say that they were born in Canada. You know, there's nothing racist about what I said. I'm sure that there is another Sikh born Canadian. That's what the religion is of Jagmeet Singh. She's a Sikh. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sure there's a lot more qualified Sikh born or Canadians that are Sikh, all right, that were born in Canada that could represent the NDP or another party or as an independent, hopefully, wholeheartedly and with passion. And not to mention the NDP platform under Singe is utterly pathetic and sounds like a cell phone plan. I'm honestly not joking about that. I'm going to do another video about that very soon though, because I mean, the most important thing in getting out of this is an alternative. We've got to start thinking outside the ballot box here, because if we don't, this is all just going to be a big waste of time. So, you know, thanks for watching. We went a little bit over time here. If I don't like this, I might delete it. So watch it fast. But remember, share it out with a friend. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Remember, we're living in Eden. We're all citizens of Eden. We're all citizens of Earth. We're living in a paradise right now. You can plant a seed out in your garden and grow a bunch of food. You can get a chicken that poops eggs every day, crack them open, eat yourself a nice breakfast. But we're letting it go to shit. Thanks for watching. I'm Al Wharton.